Hello everybody, my name is Logan. I'm back again with another guide. The first one for Windwalker Monk seemed to go over pretty well, so I decided we'd go over the one that I feel next most comfortable with. I certainly am not expecting to go over all of the classes and specs. I don't have near that much time, nor am I knowledgeable enough about each one to comfortably make a guide for them. So today we're going over the Fire Mage. Fire Mage is one of my personal favorites and maybe the one I'm enjoying playing most right now. Fire Mage is kind of tricky at first. Blizzard's main goal with all class design is that they're easy to learn, difficult to master. This class sort of meets that, except in my opinion I find that it's actually difficult to understand at first, easy to play, difficult to understand, and then the mastery part of it comes in at the end, and it is a tricky one to get a good handle on. Now, one thing to keep in mind, if you are low item level or leveling, I don't really recommend playing Fire very much. It is very stat and gear dependent. So, unless you really just kind of want to jump in an LFR, practice it, have fun, whatever, it doesn't really matter too much, then by all means do it, because it is a lot of fun. One more disclaimer I should add before we start getting into things. This guide does not cover things based on the 2 and 4 piece bonuses. I wish it did, but unfortunately I don't have them yet on this character, so I can't really give you a good, accurate opinion and some instructions on how to use it, because I haven't had my own experiences with it yet. I know it's a cruel world we live in, isn't it? Alright, normally most guides will start out with going over, your stats, your talents, and glyphs. For Fire Mage, I don't think we're going to do that. We're going to jump right into the basic rotation so that we can understand why certain glyphs and talents are better than others and in certain situations. So, let's jump right into it here. First off, if you're coming from Mist of Pandaria, if you had, your mage sitting there at level 90, you just leveled it with this, that, and the other thing, Mage Armors don't really exist anymore. They technically are, they do still exist, they're in your spell book, but each class, it's just baked in. So for example, Arcane Mage passively always have Mage Armor active where they have Mastery. Fire Mages always have Molten Armor active where we gain extra crit. So don't worry about that anymore. Also, you'll also have your Arcane Brilliance buff, so you get Spell Power and Critical Strike. Now, for the actual spells that we use, we have 3 main abilities. The first one is Inferno Blast, the second one is Fireball, the third one is Pyroblast. Pyroblast is your big hitter. That's where most of your damage is going to come from. And it has something a little bit special with it. We're going to go over that in a couple seconds here. Fireball is the one you're going to push the most often. That's going to be basically your filler spell. It's your filler spell, but you also use it to generate some procs. Inferno Blast is unique as well. It is guaranteed to crit every time you use it. It has an 8-second cooldown. It also spreads any damage over time effects from your other fire spells to other targets around it. In this case, it'll spread to 6 because I have a glyph that we'll talk about towards the end of the video. Now, Pyroblast is unique because first of all, it deals a straight up large amount of damage. Direct damage, it does a pretty high amount. After that, it deals another high amount, but over 18 seconds, as you can see from the tooltip here. Now, the tricky part about it is, when you deal a direct damage, one of your direct damage spells, so Inferno Blast, Fireball, or Pyroblast, if that crits, you get a proc called Heating Up. Now, Heating Up will look something like this. Hopefully, I'll get one here pretty soon. I need another one. Okay, there we go. This is called Heating Up. So that one of those fireballs crit. Now, if we get another one right in a row, see it says getting 2 single target non-periodic fire critical strikes in a row will make your next Pyroblast instant, cost no mana, and deal 25% additional damage. So, if we can get another one here. Here's the RNG. This is why we don't recommend playing this at low gear levels. So we have Heating Up. I'm going to use Inferno Blast since it's guaranteed to crit. Now this is called Pyroblast with an exclamation point. We can also, while this is active, if we're fortunate enough, get another thing of heating up. So now we have heating up and Pyroblast. All right. So now there's a neat little, okay, I'm taking too long to do this here. I'll try and explain it anyway. When you have both of them up there and ready, you can kind of cheat the system a little bit by casting Fireball, and your Pyroblast is instant cast. So as soon as your Fireball reaches the end of its cast down here, you want to instantly use your Pyroblast. The reason you do that is, if you're lucky enough, they'll both crit and you'll be right back to where you were with a instant cast Pyroblast and heating up. And if with your high enough crit, you can rely on that more and more, and you can just sit there chaining Fireballs and Pyroblasts, and your damage is going to go really high. Inferno Blast is something else to keep in mind. It's mostly used, well, I shouldn't say mostly used, but one of its big uses is to guarantee or ensure that you get procs of your Pyroblast and heating up. Okay, so let's get a heating up going here. Okay, so now we have heating up. I'm going to cast Fireball and cue Inferno Blast. Now we got lucky enough. Boom, right like that. This takes some practice. You're going to want to look up some things on Icy Veins so you can sit there and read through it and kind of work along with it as it's telling you what to do. So again here, I'm going to wait for this to die out. When we get a proc of heating up, you're going to cast a second Fireball. And the reason we do that is you cast the second one because it actually has flight time between you and your target. So it's going to take an extra couple milliseconds to get from you to the target. Inferno Blast, as I said earlier, is a guaranteed critical strike. So you're guaranteed to get your proc of Pyroblast. But so you're guaranteed to get that, so you're going to, boom, get Pyroblast. But in the meantime, your Fireball is in midair, hasn't hit the target yet. If you're lucky enough, it'll crit, and you'll be sitting there with both procs of heating up and Pyroblast. So let's see if I can get that going here. So I can't show you what's going on. Okay, it's heating up. Inferno Blast. There we go. Now Fireball, Pyroblast. They both crit. So if you're watching down here, okay, so now here's an interesting place. You can either keep casting Fireball, or you can guarantee yourself and use your Inferno Blast. And there we got nothing. So now we're back building up towards these procs again. Fireball, 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 Inferno Blast. Now we're looking for heating up proc here. We just need one of our Fireballs to crit. That's all we need right now. Boom, we got it. Cast them both off. Right? Not too bad. Take some practice, stand in front of the dummy, and work on it. Because it is a little confusing at first. You gotta like train your eyes to see these things too, because I don't know if it's the color or what, but sometimes in the middle of a fight they're hard to see. So you just kind of gotta practice with it, get used to looking for them. Okay, now next is the hard part. Well, not really the hard part, it's just something that's kind of difficult to wrap your brain around for a while, and that is your mastery. Your mastery is called Ignite. It actually has a name for it. So I'm just going to read this right to you. Your target burns for an additional percentage, whatever your mastery is, over 5 seconds of the total direct damage caused by your Fireball, Frostfire Bolt, Inferno Blast, Scorch, Pyroblast, Flame Strikes, Meteor, and their multi-strikes. If this effect is reapplied, any remaining damage will be added to the new Ignite. So what that means is your fire spells are going to apply a dot that is equal to the percentage of your mastery of the direct damage dealt by the spell. All right, so let's build a scenario here. If you currently have no Ignite on the target, and you fire off a Pyroblast that you're lucky and it crits, it does 50,000 damage right away. Not the dot effect, but the direct damage. And we'll say, for the sake of easy math, you have 10% mastery. That means you will apply a 5-second dot that will tick for 5,000 total damage. Your Ignite is 5,000 divided by the 5 seconds that it's going to be ticking. So the actual tick that it does per second. So in this case, you have a ticking dot on the target for 1,000 every second for 5 seconds. Right? That's not too bad. You can add to your Ignite by chaining together really hard-hitting spells. So when you're doing your rotation here, you get all kinds of Pyroblast. You can just start spamming your Pyroblast, assuming that the procs keep up with you, and you can build up a really, really high Ignite. Alright, but why do you want a really high Ignite? Well, it's great, first of all, because you get a dot on the target that ticks for 5 seconds, but 5 seconds is not very long. Here's where the cooldown, the only DPS cooldown that Fire Mages have, really, it's called Combustion. Combustion is pretty simple once you understand your Ignite. So what it does, when your Ignite is ticking, say you have Ignite on the target and you got a really good set of Pyroblasts off, and your target is ticking for, let's say, 5,000 damage every second. When when 5 seconds is over, or if you add more damage to it, your Ignite's going to go down. Or if you add a small amount of damage to it, your Ignite's going to go down. What you can do is use Combustion and lock in that amount of Ignite, right? So you lock that amount in, and now what Combustion does is it combusts the Ignite on your target, and it burns the target for that amount, will equal to that amount over 16 seconds. So if you're ticking for 5k a second, what damage will do, see 5k times 16 seconds, you do the math, it's going to do that damage over 20 seconds. This is a very powerful cooldown if you can get it all working right. So, it might sound kind of confusing at first. It's really not, though. I promise you it's really not. You just kind of gotta work at it. So, overall, the entire, that's pretty much it right now for Fire Mage. That's the main gist of it. You want to build up a high dot of Ignite, and then use Combustion and watch everything burn alive as your DPS numbers go through the roof. That's about it. And that's why it's so fun. Fire is difficult because sometimes if the RNG gods are not with you and things don't crit the way you want them to or when you want them to, you can be sitting there and your damage is absolutely terrible and you just want to switch to Frost, right? Other times, you can sit there and you can get crit after crit after crit and watch your Ignite go through the roof, and then you can sit there and combust it, spread it to any targets around it, and your damage will just go freaking crazy. Now, let's talk about statistics here. Your main stat obviously is Intellect, and I'm going to have moved this little chart over here. This is a Simcraft that I ran of myself just today. Now, if you are familiar with Simcraft, your results may vary for your mage. This is specific to the gear I'm wearing. I am 663, nothing real super special. But you can see Intellect and Spell Power are your two main stats. No brainer for any kind of caster, right? Our most important stat is Critical Strike. Now, if you've followed along so far, you'll know that Critical Strike makes our procs happen. Procs give us a higher Ignite, which give us a higher amount of Combustion, which is the whole goal. So, crit is very, very important. Mastery is also important. Again, for a very similar reason as crit. The higher your mastery, the more damage, the higher percentage of the damage of your direct dealing spells will go into your Ignite, giving you a higher Ignite. After that, it's basic caster type of statistic priorities, haste, multi-strike, versatility. So piece of gear drops, the moral of the story, piece of gear drops that has crit and mastery on it, that's got your name written all over it. Okay, now that we understand that, we're going to go through some talents. First talent, Glyph of Combustion. For any kind of single target or 2, maybe even 3 target, Glyph of Combustion is very, very good. In fact, it's almost mandatory for anything like that. There's very few times you want to remove this glyph. What it does is it increases the duration of your combustion by 100% and the cooldown. Combustion is normally a 45-second cooldown. With the glyph, it's a minute and a half. It also normally lasts 10 seconds. With the glyph, it lasts 20 seconds. So that means you can focus more on getting a really, really good high one rather than forcing it off just so you get lots of combustions used throughout the fight. Only time you don't really want to use this is on fights where you're trying to spread things around to lots of adds that die relatively quickly. So think about Beast Lord Darmak. Calls out all the beasts during that fight. Generally, those die pretty quickly, and they come pretty frequently. You can use Glyph of Combustion for that fight, but you don't have to. That would be one fight where it would be okay not to use it. You'd get lots more off, and you can spread it to all those little adds. Next glyph, Glyph of Inferno Blast. This one's not necessarily mandatory either, except for things when you're trying to spread lots of dots around. Because remember, as we said earlier, Inferno Blast spreads your fire damage effects on the target to up to 6 enemies within 10 yards. So your the dot from your Pyroblast, your Ignite, and your Combustion even will spread to up to 6 targets. 5 normally, 6 with the Glyph. Pretty useful. The next Glyph is kind of personal choice. I personally love Glyph of Rapid Displacement. Get 2 charges of Blink, 1, 2, major useful. Alright. You can also swap out a few other ones. There's another one here, Glyph of Blink. You travel 8 yards farther with 1 blink. Another one here, Dragon's Breath. It replaces your Cone of Cold. As fire, Dragon's Breath replaces your Cone of Cold. This increases the damage by your Dragon's Breath. It's good for oftentimes trash, or even things like Beastlord Darmak. If you're just in there, there's tons of things up. Go in there, use Dragon's Breath. Pretty simple. Past that, you can just read through these on your own. None of them are really super complicated, nor are they damage increasing. A lot of them have just their own special place for whatever's going on in your raid. Now, talents. Level 15 talents. What separates the men from the boys, ladies and gentlemen, is Ice Floes for a mage. All 3 specs have it. Mages cast a lot of spells. That's the idea. As a caster, the more spells you cast, the more damage you do. The object is to cast a lot of spells. You can't cast while moving. So when you have to move, you want to use Ice Floes. Ice Floes has 3 charges. You can cast it. See, I have Ice Floes down here. And you can cast while moving. Cast another one, cast while moving. Each one, I believe, is on a 20-second cooldown, right? That's a lot. If you're sitting there most of the time, you've got all kinds of charges going, you need to move from one place to another, cast Ice Floes, you're good to go. On that subject, you also have a spell called Scorch. This is castable while moving. It doesn't do much damage, but it's something. It's more than nothing if you just have to move and get out of the way. So, Ice Floes, generally the go-to one. Takes a little bit of practice to use. It's not on a global cooldown. You can cast it in the middle of a cast, right? So here I'm casting Pyroblast, which I don't ever recommend doing without a proc. Let's try it again. Ice Floes, boom. Very useful. Highly recommended. That makes a huge difference in your damage if you have to move a lot. Blazing Speed has its place. Not, in my opinion, not as much as Ice Floes, but Blazing Speed has its place for sure. Level 30 are all sort of defensive cooldowns. For raiding, Alter Time is your go-to spell. In Mist of Pandaria, or at least in Mist of Pandaria at least, I don't remember before that, Alter Time was a DPS cooldown. Now it's a defensive. What it does, it locks in your health and position when you use it, and when it expires and or when you use it again in the 10 seconds that it has, it will return you to your exact location that you first used it and the health you had. So an ideal place to use it would be, say, for during Gruul, when he uses an Inferno Slice. You're sitting there at 100%, he turns around, swipes you in the face, and you're down to 50% health. You can use Alter Time before he hits you. Whenever he's done, use Alter Time again, and you're back to full health instantly. Your healers didn't have to do anything. They'll thank you for that. Flame Glow is passive. It's not very powerful, except for fights that have constant AoE damage that's just kind of sitting there taking on you all the time. Not great, don't necessarily recommend it. If you're starting out and you already feel overwhelmed with keybinds and all that kind of stuff, then you can get away with it, it's fine. Ice Barrier is also very good. It's just a shield, it works the same way as Ice Barrier always has. Level 45, don't worry about it for raiding, it doesn't really matter. Level 60, we've got more defensives here. Generally, Greater Invis is going to be your go-to. It's a 90% damage reduction. You can soak up all kinds of damage. I remember in Siege of Orgrimmar and in Mist of Pandaria for Heroic, before 6.0, Heroic Malkorok for the orbs during his Blood Rage phase, or what I forget what it was called, but you know what I'm talking about. When you would go through and soak up all kinds of orbs, pop greater invisibility, run around, you're taking very, very little damage. Super useful ability. Cauterize is passive. If you've ever played a Death Knight, or you know anything about Death Knights, it's basically purgatory. Any kind of damage that would kill you brings you instantly back to 35% health, and then you burn for 28% of your max health over 6 seconds. It happens once, or it can happen once every 2 minutes. A good mage, if they cauterize, will cauterize. You'll see that you're cauterizing an ice block. Boom. And now, instead of burning for 28% of your health, you're burning for nothing, and you'll come back up at 35%. Unless you've been healed, then you'll be more, obviously. Cold Snap, it's okay. I use these two mostly. You can use this, it has its place sometimes. Now, from here on out is where we get into DPS changing abilities. Level 75 is the difference between AoE and single target, for the most part. Living Bomb is an AoE ability. Living Bomb, you apply it to your target, and then you can spread it with Inferno Blast to 6 targets around it. When it expires, it explodes. So it sits there, you put it on your target, you spread it, all 6 of your targets are sitting there ticking for whatever damage it's ticking for. When it expires, all of them will explode and do a ton of damage. It does an obnoxious amount of damage in AoE situations. Blast Wave is pretty cool. Personally, I really like Blast Wave. Blast Wave is a lot of fun. Blast Wave has 2 charges, and it hits your main target for a ton. It hits really hard. It also does a smaller amount of damage to all enemies within 8 yards around it. That's not really what you're going for with Blast Wave. You're mostly going for single target. It's just a lot of fun to use. Unstable Magic has its place. Again, similar to, like I said up top, here with your Alter Time, Flame Glow, Ice Barrier, etc. Use Flame Glow if you're overwhelmed by keybinds. Unstable Magic is viable. Generally, Living Bomb and Blast Wave are better, but Unstable Magic, you're not going to suffer too much from it. So, pick those. Personal preference for the most part. Living Bomb, AoE, Blast Wave, single target. Level 90. These talents straight up are DPS increases. You probably know what Rune of Power is. You've probably seen it on the ground. It looks something like this. While you're inside of this rune here, okay, see, look, my buff's up here, it's in the corner. I'm not in it. Now I'm in it. While you're inside of it, you do 15% more spell damage. This is your number one in terms of simulated DPS and all kinds of other stuff. This is the one that will grant you the most damage. But if you can't stay in it, it is a DPS loss. If you're in a fight where there's a lot of movement and you're not in your Rune of Power the whole time, you're going to suffer. There are some tricks. If you know about what's coming, you can put 2 of these down at once. So I'm going to put this one here, and I'm going to put another one over here. So now I'll say there's some big mechanic coming right here on this Rune of Power. I'm going to go boom, blink to this one. I'm going to be still in my rune, and I'm going to be back to doing damage. It takes planning. You got to know ahead of time what's coming. Fights where there's a lot of movement and you can't deal with this, Enchantress Flow is still a pretty good choice. It's not as good, it's not as reliable because the damage that it gives you changes pretty frequently. But it does roughly the same thing, it's just a percentage increase to your spell damage. Mirror Image is also good, depending on fight length. Mirror Image just summons other casters around you and they cast spells, right? It's only really good if you can use it in a very short fight. So think about, say your guild is geared to the teeth and you're killing Heroic Butcher in High Mall. The fight's going to be pretty short, right? If you can use this when it expires, if the fight ends when your second one expires, then it's useful. Beyond that, it's not that great. Okay, level 100 talents. Most of us watching this video are going to be using Meteor, because more than likely you're still pretty new to Fire Mages, and that means you're going to have a lower item level. Meteor does a ton of damage, and it looks freaking awesome, right? So there's Meteor. Who doesn't want to play a class with an ability like that? That's all I'm saying right now. Prismatic Crystal is good if you have really high gear and the 4-set bonus. Kindling, sort of the same situation. Kindling makes your the cooldown of your combustion reduced by 1 second for every fireball and Pyroblast and Inferno Blast, including Frost Firebolt, but you're probably not ever going to cast Frost Firebolt. So Fireball, Pyroblast, and Inferno Blast reduce the cooldown of combustion by 1 second. So if you have really high crit and you're getting tons of really high ignite all the time on a regular basis, then you can get away with using Kindling. Very strong. Also very good for cleaving. So things like Beastlord Darmak or Operator Thogar, Kindling can be very good because you get more combustions off in a fight. Now, let's talk about add-ons. You probably saw them earlier when I was showing you guys rotation. So we have, let's see if we can make some things proc here. Alright, here, this is my weapon enchant. This is my ring. This is a trinket proc. I left combat there, dang it. This is showing me that my meteor is off of cooldown. Again, trinket proc again. That's awfully convenient. It won't when I want it to, though. You watch. Down here, I have another thing tracking my living bomb on the target. And this is a cooldown timer for combustion. So when it's off of cooldown, this appears. Right, so that's pretty much it. I'll show you guys once we leave combat here. If we leave combat. There we go. These are all my buttons. So again, this is my ring. This is the 690 ring. It just shows me when it's off, or when it's proccing, when it's doing its thing. This is the weapon bonus, which gives me, I'm using the Mark of the Thunderlord, which gives me critical strike. It's pretty darn useful. This is a blast wave icon, so whenever I'm talented into this, it shows me when my blast wave is off of cooldown and how many charges I have of it. Because remember, there's 2 of them. As I said, this one here is for Meteor. This shows when it's off of cooldown because it does a lot of damage. It's a 45-second cooldown. You want to use it on cooldown for the most part. Trinket proc, so that I know if I can get away with spamming Pyroblast or not to build up ignite. Here's a ice block thing. Here's a Ultra Time and Amplify Magic. I don't think I have these activated right now, but you can set those up. They're also very useful. Down here, if you're going to use Rune of Power, I really recommend this, unless you're comfortable with looking at the top of your screen and looking for buffs all the time. This tells you when you are and are not in it. The way I have it set up here, if I'm not in it, this shows up. When I am in it, this is gone, right? So that way, I'll show you here. I'm going to enter combat because I have everything to only appear when I'm in combat. Rune of Power, poof, disappears. That's what I'm in it. You can really get screwed over if you're standing on the edge of it, you think you're in it, but you're not quite. That kind of deal. So, that's pretty much it for those. It's not a whole lot else for add-ons. Oh, yeah, I lied to you. There is one more big one. This here is called Combustion Helper. You don't necessarily need this yet like you did in Mist of Pandaria. That might change more with gear levels as we see higher rating tiers in Warlords of Draenor here. Because we're basically building up a pretty similar amount of ignite each time we do it. But this just shows you how much ignite you have. So I'm going to smash my keyboard here. Get out of the TellMeWhen thing. I'm going to try and build up lots of ignite. And you just wait. I won't get hardly any crits here. See? Nothing yet. Man, oh man. There we go. Oh, and we got a trinket proc. So now we're going to get lots of Pyroblast here, hopefully. Okay, so that's not exactly ideal, but there you can see. Yeah, that was a terrible combustion. But that was the idea. Build up lots of ignite. And the idea of the add-on here is so that you know, like, holy cow, I'm at a lot of ignite right now. I should probably use my combustion ASAP. And vice versa, if you probably should wait a little bit. Let's go check out. There's not crap. There's not really a whole lot of to do in the way of macros. There's a few little like quality of life ones you can use. Here, the main one though you want to look at is Combustion. Combustion, if you're in the middle of casting, you want to make sure that you get Combustion off at the right exact time. If your Combustion's really high, or if your Ignite's really high all of a sudden, you want to cancel your cast. So you can use this macro, which will stop casting, cast Combustion, and here I have it using a trinket, which I don't even have right now, but you get the idea. It really doesn't really matter because there's nothing to use. That's pretty much it. Another one I use is Amplify Magic. This is just Amplify Magic increases all friendly healing for your entire raid. It's a raid cooldown. It increases the healing received by 10%. Super useful. What I did here is I just have /yell Amplify Magic active for 6 seconds and it casts Amplify Magic. So just like that. That's pretty much all there is. Just so that the healers can see that Amplify Magic is up. The rest here, don't need to worry about them. There's other ones. You can find them online. There's other neat little macros you can use, cancel aura macros, etc. But beyond that, not super important. Unlike the Arcane Mage, I have my Arcane spec, I've got lots of macros. Alright, let's look at AoE. AoE is where you shine. Anything with up to 6 targets, that's got your name written all over it. So, as we said earlier, Living Bomb is the way you want to roll here. So let's go over, let's precast the Pyroblast. We're going to try and do this almost as if it's an opening rotation. Come on, crits. There we go. Ooh, look at that. Ooh. So, cast Combustion, cast Living Bomb, Inferno Blast to spread it to those 3 targets. Let me have my rune down. So that's pretty much it. You're watching this here. Boom, Living Bomb just exploded. Living Bomb, Inferno Blast, spread it back out. Continue your single target. Our Combustion was down there ticking for a reasonable amount. It'll be higher in raids when you have a mastery buff and all that. I don't even have my spell power, my mage buff up. That's pretty much it. It's not real complicated. It's just a matter of getting things on. Living Bomb, spread it out. Again, they're spreading with Inferno Blast. Hopefully my button mashing isn't too obnoxious. I apologize if it is. Keep our meteor going. There. Doesn't that look cool? I'm telling you. Why you wouldn't want to play a mage just because of meteor is beyond me. For the most part, that's it for our AoE. Rarely are you going to be in there using Dragon's Breath. You can. It's a good thing to use. It's good filler. It does a little bit of damage. I don't even have a Glyph because I'm a freaking scrub. But that's pretty much it. Now let's say we're going to use Blast Wave. Blast Wave is a lot of fun. Blast Wave does not add to your Ignite. At least as far as I'm aware, it does not add to your Ignite. It's just another button to press that hits pretty hard. So we're going to drag this down here to our bars, and we're going to rock with it from there. These two, Kindling plays the same. You don't have Meteor if you want to switch this out. Prismatic Crystal, again, don't worry about it unless you have the 4-piece. Meteor, always going to use it, even for, it does AoE damage, but it's also your single target ability as well, because it also burns the ground for a pretty high amount. Blast Wave has 2 charges, so you always want one recharging. You don't ever want to be sitting there with 2. You always want one recharging, otherwise you're wasting time that you could be recharging. So here you can see I have 2 charges. Boom, spend one, spend another one. It's just a filler spell. That's all it is. And you're just waiting. A lot of times what I'll try and do, I don't think I did it there because I wasn't paying attention. I'll try and save one, again, because it doesn't matter when you use it. I'll try and save one for whenever my ring procs. That way I have a little extra spell power, a little extra intellect, so that my Blast Wave does more damage. And you can see, if you look at my abilities there, Blast Wave is pretty high on the charts. Lots of damage, lots of fun. I really like Blast Wave a lot. Unfortunately, most of Blackrock Foundry, you can benefit from Living Bomb a little bit more. Not all the time, but a lot of the fights where fire is majorly useful, Living Bomb is where it's at. Boom. Get this all down. Blast Wave hits like a truck. And there you have it. Use Invis to leave combat like a freaking boss. Now, let's talk about our opening rotation. This is the hard part, people, because you're trying to build up Ignite as fast as possible, right? Meteor adds to your Ignite. Now, I'm still working on this personally. The idea is to get a proc of Pyroblast before heating up and get Meteor on the ground, because most of its damage comes from the burning damage, when it hits, right? So you can build up your Ignite that way. But then when you get to the Pyroblast phase here, let's go about this. Actually, we're going to take another step back. Let's pretend that the pull is just occurring. Your tank's a good tank, so you use a pull timer, and when you reach 5 seconds or so, put down your Rune of Power for maximum uptime. Pre-cast Pyroblast, really long cast. Till you hit 1, you should be about ready to go. Then you start Fireball. Get a proc of it going. Get this up. Oh, of course they can get both procs there. Now, Pyroblast. Pyroblast. Bam. Spread it around. Our Combustion's ticking for 2,331 damage every 0.93 seconds for 20 seconds. That's not great, but it ain't awful. At least not for being unbuffed and whatnot. So on 3 targets, even with me screwing around here without hero, was what, 38, 39k there or so. It's not too shabby. And then you just keep going your regular rotation. You want to kind of watch for Combustion to come back off again, so you can plan ahead a little bit and go, okay, I need to really make sure I have some buttons ready here, some good Ignite ready for Combustion whenever it's up. If you're lucky, your crit trinket will proc, which mine never does. It's always a little irritating. But see, like right now, getting kind of lucky, getting lots of nice crits in, just flowing. You're flowing with all these crits and these procs. It's just a good old time. It's not real complicated. There's not a whole lot to your single target. But man, when you get them big crits off and lots of Combustion, you're sitting there on the edge of your seat going, oh my goodness, look at my damage. It's just a lot of fun, guys. I really, really like Fire Mage. I guess we got Combustion coming up here. Crap. See, don't listen to my own advice. Get lots more going. Boom. Reasonable little bit of Ignite there. Spread it around. With multi-target, you always want to make sure that spreads around as soon as possible. Alright. One thing I don't know if I mentioned here. Let's get out of this. I don't know if I mentioned it. If you have a proc of Heating Up, right? See the small little one in the middle of your screen. If you have a proc of Heating Up and you cast, say you just forget about it, or you cast a second Fireball, if that second one doesn't crit, Heating Up goes away. Let's see if I can make it happen here. Okay, so there we have Heating Up. Next one, of course it crits. Alright, so let's try this again. Okay, come on, proc for me. Okay, Heating Up. There, it did not crit. Heating Up goes away. That's why it's super, super important to remember what I said earlier about things having cast time, or having travel times between you and the target and your Inferno Blast. Always want to make sure that Inferno Blast gets there first. So, Inferno Blast, there, and we didn't waste anything. We didn't get lucky, but we didn't waste anything. That's about it, people. This is not a super in-depth guide. For that, you'll have to do a lot of reading, look up theory crafting sites, especially if you're looking to learn how to use the 2 and the 4 piece. The 2 piece gives you an extra proc. See, I'm not wearing this. The 2 piece gives you an extra charge, rather not proc, an extra charge of Inferno Blast. Super, super big quality of life improvement. And then your 4 piece is a proc that when you have when it procs, your Pyroblast, you basically just sit there with 4 seconds worth of Pyroblast procs. They're guaranteed to crit, and they're guaranteed instant cast for 4 seconds. So with that, you can sit there spamming the crap out of it, building up really high ignite, and that's always fun. I think that's pretty much where we're going to end it. We've already gone over some defensives and utility. We've got Ice Block, you've got Alter Time, you've got Amplify Magic. You can conjure your refreshment table in a raid environment, no one cares. But in a dungeon, that can be good for your healer. Put some mana buns down, and your poor undergeared healer can be on their merry way. So, we're going to close it all out there, guys. I hope you've learned something. I hope you didn't get bored with me rambling on about how much I love Fire Mage. And until next time, we'll see you later.